Right, so we've got a lovely topic tonight of springtime nesting in the garden. So I've got quite a few choice of all sorts of garden birds doing, well, really kind of in this hive of activity, doing this, that, and the other, which is a little bit different to what we've done before. We might have covered birds before, but we haven't actually tried to capture the essence of this time of the year, whether that be the nest or gathering bits for nests or feeding the young or whatever. So the idea with tonight is we're not really doing a really in-depth study of a bird. We've done that before, but what we're trying to do through our art and through our interpretation of what we see, our artist's impression, is create an artist's impression of the feeling as well of springtime. So, so we can make it loose or we can make it tight. You can do it exactly how you want to. It's all about your mark making as usual. But yeah, so if we can think, are we capturing the essence of this lovely busy time in the garden where it is like um, you know, um, like we've just been saying, that there's all the birds are kind of coming and going and it's busy and lovely. So that's the idea really with this one, is to capture that. And if you capture that, it doesn't matter if something's not totally perfect, because we're trying to capture the moment as opposed to a study of a bird. Do you see the difference there? But yeah, there's all sorts we can do. And as normal with pastel, we want the background layers on first. And we can layer up on top with the pastel over the top, even with the light colours. But if we've got a big block of something, like this is a big block, I'm not going to take that background right behind it. There's just no point. However, I'm going to put my bird on a little bit more over the top, but I'm just going to bring some of this background in behind it. And the rule of thumb, as always with pastel, as we're building up those layers, is if we can get our, in each particular bit we're doing, get the darks on first and get those fixed in, that's great. But if we can't, sometimes that rule has to be broken, because we might have feathers that are dark that go over the top of the light ones, etc. It just minimizes kind of getting the darker colors mixed in with the other ones. So we need to keep these a little bit separate if we can. When we're building over the top of other colors, so we've got blues here, we might be building a little bit over a bit of yellow. We've got to be careful we're not really hard with our finger when we're mixing it, because then we'll end up with a green. So it's a similar principle to not kind of over mixing with acrylics as well, is to make sure that we're keeping the colors nice and fresh. So as we come to the top layers, where the light ones are going over the darker ones, we've put more pressure on and much less a much lighter touch as we go to the top layers. So there we go. So I'm just going to go in and have a little look at, and again, if you're doing this one where there's kind of almost streaks and it's a bit blurry, often we do get that when we've got, a particular photograph of a bird, because it's in the focus at the front. But some of the other ones as well, backgrounds where you've got some of these green and it's a little bit fused, there's colours together, there might be some circular, so we're just trying to capture whatever shapes we can see, and we just ever so slightly just fuse, like make the end a little bit fuzzy. So I like that for this. So again, with pastels, we're just trying lots of different colours. I've got a little bit of paper here as usual, just to make sure I'm trying the colours of different colours on my palette to see what I really like. I've got a pinky one there. Just looking at all my colours together, actually. I've got this light blue one. And again, what we can do is, if you've got two colours that are similar tones, so I'm going to get a little bit of an orangey one in here, actually. I'm just going to see what that would look like as an overlap. So if we can't always get exactly the colour we want, we can layer one over the other, but generally if we stick to a similar palette of colours, that's better, because we're not then going to mix it all in together. So yes, it's just that lightness of touch, just building up the colours that you can see. And as I said, you can overlay it, but we can't really mix the colours over the top of each other in terms of properly mixing them in, because we're just kind of changing the colour slightly by layering one on top of the other. You can do it, you can. You'd have to get like some scrape off some of the chalk dust with a different colour and mix it like that on the, so you can mix it that way, but it's a bit faffy really just for doing a bird. But yeah, well, I mean, we're going to explore, just explore with all these wonderful colours and just really enjoy getting into the flow. It's beautiful for that, this one. So really just enjoy yourself on this tonight. I'm sure you will anyway. Really lovely. I've gone in with a lighter coloured background, a creamy one, because I've got very light colours here. So I've just gone for kind of a fairly neutral one. And I might use some of the colours over here. So all I'm going to put on actually is just get, you can start with a slightly lighter or slightly darker pastel to map it out rather than pencil if you want to, because then you can actually get rid of the lines quite easily. I will go in as usual, much darker so that you can see what, excuse me, see what I'm doing. Otherwise, it won't show up on the camera. So, but you stick to, you stick to slightly. In fact, that's not going to show up either. Let's find another one. I'll go in with a pencil. You can just stick to what you've got. So I'm just looking, as usual, as to how far out this comes. It's just kind of just a bit over halfway, really. So I'm looking at whereabouts each of these bits of the roof comes in. And again, I'm not drawing these out really detailed yet, because I'm going to bring in some of that colour behind it. So I'm just going to get an idea. And again, with the pastel, as with everything else, we can lift, shift, move until we're happy, which we often do. So, don't worry about that. I'm just getting some little marks in where I think this is going to go. If you're not sure about the angles, again, really simply, just get a pencil or something, or a, maybe it comes to here. It's because I'm looking at that and already lifting and shifting, look, when you just started. There we go, and that's absolutely fine. And then we can just kind of look at how that comes down just with this, that's kind of quite straight in there, and then it comes down. So again, I'm just getting a little edge in here. I'm not really doing too much because the bird's there as well, but I'm just kind of, just so I don't have to come all the way in with that colour, really, with all the colours in the background. I will probably just get an idea of a sense of whereabouts the bird is. I mean, the bird on this one is really small. Obviously it's feeding the young there. So I'm just going to just get an idea of whereabouts that actually is. It's kind of in this section, isn't it? So again, I'm just looking at how far down, these come, just so that I can bring that colour into the background a bit. Although it's going to be very small. I think actually, because this particular piece is very small, I'm just going to get the background in first. I didn't this morning because I was working on A3, so that's the difference. If you're working on A3, you can actually kind of map it and map out a little bit your bird and then get it in. And even A4, but this is so tiny, this is A5, that I'm just going to go in with the colours that we've got there. So let's have a little look again. So part of this process is just really enjoying the colours. And again, if there's other colours on there that you really like and you want to pop in, just go for it. Just use them. I think springtime is a lovely time to think about all the colours that are starting to emerge. I think the garden, there seem to be a lot of garden birds about at the moment as well. And I know we always get this, but I don't know whether some things are coming in a little bit further from afar because there's not been much for them. Perhaps because it's a bit delayed this spring. But I know we had a redwing in our garden the other day on the fence, and then we've had a little wren trying to nest as well outside the window. So I do think that they don't normally come so in. Maybe it's just everything's delayed and they're finding food in people's gardens, maybe. Right, so this obviously I'm going in with a little bit of a tiny orange in here, and that because that's grey, I'm careful not to muddy this up too much. I'm going to pop it plenty of, enough pressure on there. Just going to wipe my fingers between as well, because that is a devil. So yeah, so we can just, just gently kind of fuse it out. And then we're just going in with just colours that you really like. So I'm going side to side. So a lot of it with pastels as well. Not used pastels for a while. It's getting back used to how much to put on, and how much to cover the sheet with as well, because quite often, sometimes we don't put quite enough on, and that's the bit, it's to decide whether to how it's going to cover. So I'm just gently tapping the edge there, just moving it across so it's a little bit more fuzzy. I mean, you can even do it like wobble it when you put it on like that side to side, for example, if you want to do that so that you're not getting like really distinct lines. It's just a little bit more fused than normal. Um, there we go. Yeah, always lovely kind of reflections. It's almost really interesting to know what that would be actually. And the same with the ones with the eggs and everything. It's getting all that background in behind the nest before you start. And because you've got a lot in there, you could get your darker twigs in and get those set into place. Unless you're using the brown to represent the twigs and things, and then you can bring the greens in around it. So it's just thinking, what's first? What do I need to put in? So I'm just going to come in now with this really light blue. I'm just now hazing this just slightly in the pink, because blue and pink, they are, one's a bit warmer, blue's a bit cooler, so I don't want to kind of really muddy it up, because that's what can happen. But just to get some really nice just to get a little bit of a fused edge there. And do this with your leaves as well. If you've got like leaves in the background or lighter leaves, you can build those up. And we kind of like, I mean, this one, there's not much, there isn't much dark in this background, which is why I'm just working my way along. But something else you can do as well is work top down, if that helps. Sometimes it gets all a bit, it can all get a little bit, muddy at the bottom of the page. So you can always work top down and do your top half as well. It's entirely up to you. So I'm trying to still work out what kind of colours, and we can't always tell, can we, what some of these things are. It just gives us a suggestion. Once we start putting the bird on and everything, or the nest, it will just, everything just fits into place beautifully. So it is a bit of a waiting game again with the pastels to see what is going to happen a bit nearer the edge, but we'll be okay. It will work out fine. Yeah, and things like this, I'm not sure what they are down here, but they're quite pretty, so I'm going to put them in. I'm not sure at all. But and you can leave those out if you think, oh, I really don't like that or know what it is, and just leave it out. But I just like the colour, the pops of colour in there, so I'm just going to pop them in. So this is where like artistic license comes in. So you can or you don't have to, entirely up to you. Your piece of artwork, you are the artist of your work. What what else can we put in? I've got purple there. I think I'll put that in just because I like it. But again, you know, this is where we can put in our preference. I can see a bit of green. So, you know, it's just kind of working out, isn't it? What you can see. I'm just making sure my fingers are a little bit clean in between these layers though. Right. So again, you know, it's like what colours can we see? What we got, what we're going to pop in. We're kind of building this based, aren't we? A lot of sometimes when we're putting these haze bits, we're building it up based on what we think we can see, which is good because that's exactly what it's about. It's our interpretation. We might not necessarily really be clear on what that is, but it doesn't matter. We're making it more of a suggestion in that case. So I'm going to go in a little bit of a purpley colour in here because again, so I like that. Purpley and bluey. Now things like this, because this purple is a little bit next to the grey, I'm not worrying too much about those two colours overlapping because they're not dissimilar shades and tones, so it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get too muddy. So we're kind of like, we're just getting used to thinking about all the different colours and everything. But yeah, if you're working on a big surface as well, it does work really well to just blow off some of that dust, chalk dust. And go in with another blue colour over the top because that's what I like. Building in these, aren't we? And again, there's kind of something dark in the corner there. I'm just going to pop it in. You might not want to pop it in, that's absolutely fine. I'm just popping it in just for a bit of contrast with this colour. I'm not sure, it looks like it could be a close line or something, not sure. It's the next bit where I'm going into yellows here, where I just want to be a bit careful actually with my fingers, because that's when it will transfer to the warm colour and then we might have a little bit of trouble there. So I'm going to use so this is where we can use the background to enhance it. I'm just going to get this part in here, which looks almost a bit like it could possibly be a windowsill. I'm not sure, but we'll try. Open that in. I'll put the light bit on last. And then I'm going to go in with this yellow. And again, it's testing the yellows because you want, whatever you use on your bird, you want to kind of stand out the most. Well, I'm just going to put a very small amount into here for the moment, just to enhance that kind of a yellowish background that I've got. And you don't even have to do that. You know, if you've got a colour on your paper that matches, then just use that and use that as whatever it is that you want to pop in there. I've got a little bit of feels slightly darker here. So I'm going to put that in. There. And then I'm just going to pop this like lighter colour. If it's a white or a cream, it's quite bright actually. Colour you're going with white there. I'm just bringing that background in, that I think I'm going to go in with the white on the edge on this ledge area here. But again, even then, it's still a bit diffused, isn't it? So if you want to kind of very lightly just tap your finger, because we're going over the top of a dark one, just bring it across a little, just fuse it out, that's fine. And I'm going to go in with a creamy one rather than a white in there, because it's kind of, if it is a window ledge, it'll be going in behind, won't it, a little bit? That's my guess anyway, it may not be that at all. Okay, so I'm going to go and just bring that all the way across here, and then I'm going to think about the bird and then the birdhouse as well. So I'm just looking at where these two meet here. I'm going to lighten this area up a little bit there between the two. So I'll just gently just tapping this over the top, because I wanted to soften it. It felt quite hard, the edge up there. So we can go in, you know, but because this is so light, I am just giving it a light tap, and I'm putting a bit more pressure onto it when it's coming on, but it feels really lovely. So I'm enjoying the experience of popping it on. So, you know, I'm just trying to get a sense of where it is outside a window in a garden. Bring this bit across here. That looks almost like there's a bit of window or something going up here. I don't know exactly, but we'll try and represent what I think is happening. Really, you know, this is like, to me, is not as important. It's just popping a few little bits of tones in, because to me, what is important is just, you know, capturing this moment of the bird in a minute in the bird box doing what it's doing. You know, we're just setting a scene with the background, aren't we? And then another little bit of yeah, throwing them about today. A little bit of yellowy colour in there. Again. So yeah, so before I do the next bit of bird, I'm just going to have a little look at what I've got. I'm still not sure what this is here. Just going to soften that there a little with a bit of pink. And soften down all the way around it, just nice and gently. I don't want to kind of blend it in, but I'm just not, I want it really soft, because it's very blurred there. I may even just pop a little bit of a lighter colour between the two to kind of fuse that out even more around it. It's almost like something hanging. Okay, so we'll take a pause there, see how you're getting on before we go on to the next bit. Okay, so it's deciding, you know, where to go next. I'm going for the bird next over here, because I'm kind of working this way across. Sometimes, you know, I'd actually quite like to get it in place anyway on here. Then I can place the little bird as well in there. But also, from a practical point of view, this is what I was saying, that sometimes people prefer working top down, so they're not kind of got the hand in the pastel. The same goes for me. Yeah, so I just kind of, to do with whether you're left or right-handed as well, sometimes you don't want to go one way or another and kind of swipe over your work. I mean, I'm going to go back over here, but I'm just going to be careful not to do it. What I'm going to try this time, though, is, because the bird is so small on here, is just to kind of get that real lively feel to it. So I'm not going to do really kind of very, very precise, because it's quite loose on my background. I'm going to try and keep the bird a little bit loose as well, but get a sense of those different colours and things, and the fact that it's feeding this little one in here. So you can go in with the edge of a pastel, or you can go in with your pencil. It's entirely up to you. I'm probably going to go in with a blue pencil actually. So I'm just going to make sure I've got this positioned. So that's the edge comes down here, comes over a bit further. Bring the top of the bird here. So also it's quite handy to just get the top. So we can also get the top of the head. And the little bird, the other little bird's coming out of there. It's got a little open beak. So it really, because mine is so small as well. When you do work small, you're gonna have to get more of a suggestion because it's quite, it's quite tricky, isn't it? Anyway, so I'm gonna get the bird here. I'm gonna get the blue tit here, but I'm gonna start to just put a few marks in, and I'll need to have an idea about the angle. Now it's interesting there when you look at this. From the top of the house down like that. The bird's a little bit tilted, but it's quite upright still, isn't it? So what I want to be able to do is think, whereabouts does this tip of this tail come from? And I'm also going to kind of go down the back way like this and just kind of work out that the angle is slightly tilted. So that's straight, slightly tilted. So I'm just going to follow that down here. Get the bird in there. And then also, so that's kind of round his background there. And then the front. Just so I'm just putting key bits in to start with, rather than trying to draw the whole thing and then just kind of shift things around a little bit. So we also need the ledge, and so that we can work out where the feet are going. The ledge kind of comes right out, doesn't it, there? So like the feet come round and under, and the legs come up. There's one behind it there. So I'm just kind of like working out where this ledge goes. And again, you can just have a little look. Just fact check it. I always say that, don't fact check it, but that's all we're doing is just checking checking how that works. So I'm just going to get the edge of where the log goes. The fact that the bird is, I've got from the bird's head actually too high up here. There's another kind of dipping down to get it. That's where I'll pop the bird. Yeah, and then how far down this tail comes. So now I've got the legs in there. You can kind of see like the back end of the tail. That's the back of the wing, which comes round. So again, I'm even going to adjust that now. So that wing comes over. And then we've got another tail coming down. The hind wing probably is the right thing to say. And then the actual tail is here, isn't it? So again, it's like working out what the angle is on the tail. And again, that's straight. We've got just a slight lean on, not too much on that one. I just find it really fascinating. So that's where the tail comes down, and that does come down lower. So it gives us an idea of the proportion of the bird, doesn't it, as well? So I'm looking now and looking at this, thinking actually my window ledge needs to come up a little bit further as well. So that's good. Keeps us thinking. No. And then, then I'm just going to kind of join the dots really, get the little beak there. But again, as I said, it's so tiny is my piece that I'm just going to be just getting some main markings, and then the rest of it will be the suggestion of the different coloured feathers and everything. So we can follow the shape of the back as well. And actually this is where we adjust, tummy shape, underneath shape. We just keep doing that. So that needs to stop there as well. It's a little bit high. Okay. Right, so again, this is where we try and go in with the darker colours. So you can use a real tiny edge of your pastel, or you can use a pastel pencil, or you can use a pastel and then a blending tip to move, you know, a rubber one to move the shapes around, or a tip of one, you know, with a little pen like this to get the eye in. I'm actually going to go and get that eye in with a pencil because it's so tiny. If I was A4, I'd probably use the blending tip. So they have an interesting shape, their eyes, don't they? And then got the beak here. And your beak's open. So yeah, really tiny. So I'm just going to test a few colours here, just to make sure I get dark blue. So yes, I'm just going to use some of these colours to try and get some of the markings in. Now on the actual eye, you often get like a little bit of a highlight. You can't see it on mine there because it is really tiny, but there is just a tiny little mark on the eye. So I'm going to try and get that on, even though that's the littlest mark. Just so it gets a little bit of a glint, because it does change the eye somewhat when you've got the little reflection in the eye. So I'm just following some of this shape of the feathers, and a lot of what we're doing with the pastel actually is trying to recreate the shape of the feathers and the direction of them, the directional flow. So I've got that there. That's quite a dark patch. But again, you know, it's how our brain makes sense of it. Quite often we need a couple of colours in there, darker and lighter, to make so that we can see it. So it's like, you know, you can't see all white feathers if they're all white. So you just need to kind of look at, are some of them slightly different tone or not? You know, it might be that, like on the yellow, there might be a brighter yellow in one place and a more kind of greeny yellow in another place with the glue tip. But it's just getting those on. But yes, I'm just getting this kind of little bits of marking. So at the moment, it's just a suggestion that those colours are there. I'm going to try and get some of the lighter colour in. But if you're on bigger, you can make this really quite loose. I'm going in with my light colours now. I've got those dark ones in place now. Feathers, and you can kind of get all those little strokes going outwards or around, whichever way it goes, like downwards, you know. I'm going to go in with this little blue colour around the face here. Or even though the face has got some white on it, I'm going in with a bluish tint first. Just tap it very gently. And this is where you could use, you know, a nice, if you just kind of move it around with a little blending tip if you want, if you're trying to get the detailing. But then I'm going to go in with a little bit of a greyish colour as well, which is a little bit darker around the eye, just because that's what I'm seeing. I still need to, I still need to put the eye back in. And then we're just thinking about all the different colours and the patches. And again, I'm going to try and go in with a bit of blue in here because that's my darker colour there. And again, you know, you can really smudge out. You can just put like a base colour underneath. It's the same when you're building up the nest as well. You know, start with a base colour. Try and get your darker ones in if you can, but then that can be difficult in terms of, you know, remembering what goes between. So where it's really finicky, then, and you can go in like quite carefully and put the lines on. You just press those lines in and really do minimal kind of disturbance with your finger. As long as you've pressed it hard enough to kind of fix it into place, that's the main thing with it. So I'm going to bring in some of this colour in here, just as a base colour. And then I'm going to pop some shadows in underneath this wing. So again, we still, even though it's pastel, we still need a bit of contrast. Now this is the bit I was saying, so that would have been too tricky for me to pop in. Sometimes if you don't see it to start with as well, it's okay. But I'm being a bit mindful that I'm not going to kind of blend that in really very much. I'm just putting plenty of pressure on. And then the same, like I'm looking at I can see a bit of a shadow coming here on the top of the feathers as well. So just going to gently pop that in. And then start to fill out with some of those other colours. Like I can see the yellowy colour on the wing, or it might even be a bit greeny, sometimes they are. So with what you think. So we can experiment with all of the colours that we've got, the different ones. See what we like. Go for it. We're just building up, you know, building up a pattern, aren't we, of shapes and things like that. I'm going to go under here and get some of this shadow in again, where the dark ones are. With my pencil, but again, you can do it at the edge of your pastel and then just get your tip, whether it's a whatever it is, and just kind of blend it and pull it down. Building those up. Oops, wrong colour. Let's go with the brown. Oh, it's a brown. So I'm going with the brownie one here. Just keep going. I mean, and again, I've just got a series of little shapes in there. It doesn't have to be really perfect. I want to capture it just like, you know, just getting in there. That's the biggest thing for me, is like you get a general idea that it's a blue tip, but it's but it's, you know, it's busy. You know, and looking at even at the different tones of yellow that we can see, because some of them are a little bit less bright than others. So you can always, you know, represent that with your colours. Under here seems a little bit bright there. Seems to be a bit bright on the tip there of its, where it's catching the light on the top. And then you almost sometimes get these darker yellowy greens in there as well. It's very fascinating. And then I'm feeling that there is a little bit of some kind of a shadow this side of the bird there. So I'm going to pop in a tiny bit of brown, but I'm breaking it up so it's not really fixed in there. And then we've got the legs coming out. And again, legs of birds are really interesting, because you just can't see all of them. You're getting a suggestion of what's going on. There's a dark one behind, a dark shadow behind that. And again, it's like looking at like what flashes of colour can you see? I can see a flash of blue, I can see a flash of blue-grey, you know, just pop on what you can see. What you think you can see. There we go. And then when I get everything else in around it, we'll start to see. So there we go. So there's this high activity. And again, we're looking at little bits, you know, like the little shadows around shadows around the legs and things like that, where you get that depth of feathers there. Okay, I'm just going to look at this tail feather, what's going down here. There's a bit of a blue under there. That's what I'm seeing, but pops of colour everywhere. It's lovely, aren't they? You know, and are those tail feathers, are they a bit brighter or are they actually a bit more dull? Just thinking about all these things. And I'm just very carefully blending out some of those dark, some of that at the length of that, because it's a little bit too long. And again, we can pop some of these on there. Soften it down a bit, something too hard. So we're getting that sense, you know, that kind of, it's just all of the little elements, isn't it, that make it quite exciting. So I'm going to put in, I'm actually going to pop in the dark area around this little bird for the moment, so that I can pop the bird in over the top, because there's not, the colours are not very bright anyway. I know that is there. Get the shadow in behind, fix it in place. Where the entrance to this little house is. From here. Where the entrance to the birdhouse is there. So you can use a little earbud as well. You don't have a blending tip, that's something else that kind of helps you kind of move it around to where you want, especially if you're working with a really small area or you want it to be a bit straighter than it is. So I'm just working this about around the little baby bird first, but I'm also trying to get in, you know, the edge now. You can see the edge is quite lit around that, so that's what I want to do. So that bit stands out. This bit's much lighter. The other side was a bit more dull. So again, all we're doing here is copying the shapes we can see, because that's all we have really to look at with that. And I'm going to go in with a more bluey tint onto this side of the bird box here. It's still light, it looks quite light. I am, however, going to turn my light on very shortly, just bear with me. Because the sun's there we go. Sudden bright light. There we go. It's amazing how fast it goes down at this time of the day. And I'll neaten that up. So I just wanted to get around this baby bird now. I'm going to put a little bit of a lighter brown in, just around here as well. So we kind of get that there is an interesting edge to this birdhouse. It's not quite straight, it's a bit higgledy-piggledy. and a bit of a taupey colour, I'm not sure, but again, we're just looking, aren't we, all the time at what colour this could be. So I'm going to pop that one in there. And then around the other side again, down here, some bright. And then pop this little bird in. So we've got the beak goes around, doesn't it? There. So the same when you're doing the eggs and things like that. We're just really looking in at where, to get the shadow side underneath where anything is between the nest or any kind of straw or anything that anybody's carrying. And then I'm going to get this little bird's head in. Highlight edge. Do need to just get an edge in, like a highlight on the thing first. And then we're going to go in, I'm going to go in with the beak now. So let's see if this is bright enough here. That beak, we can see it close up, but actually cannot see it at all from a distance, which is what we'll end up looking at our work on. Suggestion that there's a beak that's going around there. And I'll have to, there's a kind of a little shadow on the inside of that beak as well. Which helps. Do sometimes have to just create one. So it kind of stands out a little bit then. So it's the same with, the nest one or when there's any green in the background, you just need to create the contrast between two things. Otherwise it all gets a bit lost. So that could be a shadow or it could be a highlight. Or it could be an opposite colour. So I'm just going to have a look because it always seems baby birds, a little bit of the underside here of his face. And then kind of the eye, isn't it there? And almost a bluey grey colour, because it's not the same colour as it as the mum yet. Again, it's very dark around this area. Can't quite see what's happening with it. But we can see that there's a little highlight on his head again. That helps again, if we can get a little highlight on to show that there is a bird in there being fed. And maybe a tad of this little baby bird's chest here. So he's kind of going back in there, and that's, I mean, mine's tiny, but even so, I wouldn't make that too detailed in there. So I'm just going to take a pause there and see how you're getting on with this next stage before we kind of look at the putting the other details in of things. Okay, so this last kind of thinking about like the birdhouse now and everything, or the nest, or whichever little bit that you're doing on one of the other birds, is that just kind of popping in the details. So it's the textures that are really interesting, I think. The textures of the nest, or the textures of the house, birdhouse, or the textures of like the straw and things that they're collecting, or the fluff is really interesting. So I would try and go in and pop in all of the the shadows. So it's finding, those areas that are really dark. So underneath the ledges, between the cracks, in the shadows, whichever one you're doing, if it's a bit of a shady area. And sometimes with pastel, if I'm absolutely honest, it's finding a colour dark enough, because some pastel sets are much darker There we go, that's my darkest one. Are darker than others, and some pastel sets don't have, this one I have is not really that dark. I've always found that. So you've, again, it's like looking at what's the best fit for that. So I'm going to try where I can and fix any shadows into place to start with. And like this one is very dark. This bottom underneath this area here. So I'm just like thinking about how I'm going to show that. It's quite dark on this corner. This obviously is out of the sun. So you can only go with the best, you know, the kind of like the colours that you've got in your kit really. So I'm trying to just find those and set them in place. And this is where it always looks scrappy, always looks messy. So I can really relate if you're doing the bird's nest there, because it can look quite odd because it's only got like the dark bits in or another bit, and we're kind of just doing best fit. It's all a little bit higgledy-piggledy, and that's okay because that's what nature's like. So we're only just copying nature really, aren't we? So all we can do is best fit put in where we think these colours are and things like that, and then you know add on the other colours on top. This is where the brain says no thank you, I am not doing it. I don't want to acknowledge that this is okay because it looks strange. And we're here going, we're having to kind of say it is fine, it will work, and just have that like confidence that everything will be fine. So I'm just going to try and get this a bit of this legend underneath as well, and these dark colours underneath the bird's foot as well. Get a shadow under there, got all that going on, and shadows around the corner. And then, you know, we're trying to get some shape in with some highlights and things. I'm just doing this a little bit. So building it up as we do. That's all we can do. But again, you know, as I said, sometimes you just can't get all of those shadows in. Beforehand, because we just don't, you know, we can't see where they're going, so we have to just kind of pop some in carefully around what we've been working on. And just keep building this picture up until we're happy with it. Look again, try to find some darkish ones. There these go. No, and it is bitty until we start getting some other dark shape in. But again, we can do those lovely kinds of just kind of higgledy-piggledy lines, really, is one of the good things about it, which is exactly what wood and nests are like, isn't it? And you know, bits of straw and things. Just make it really really like that. So I'm just popping in these darker bits where I think I can see them. And it's what we do, you know, as we go through the process, building on top of these other colours as well, that helps. So just keep building on it. It will look very strange to start with, but then I'm almost going to kind of draw in some of these lighter spaces as well, so that I don't get the shadow around them. Natural shape of the wood. Same with the nest, just keep building up the bits and pieces. All the straw. You know, again, just kind of representing certain bits, aren't we? So together with all of the different elements in it. Okay, so this is where we get really, we start getting really covered in it. So, do that. I'm absolutely covered. We know we've had a good day when we're all covered in it. Right, so make sure my fingers are dried off as well. We get that kind of smudgy marks. So yes, we're building up. So I'm going to go the next tone I can see. I'll use some of my paper as well, but I also want to get a few other colours, and we can put some warmer ones through as well if there are a few. Like here, it's like I was saying, sometimes just popping a little bright in can just help as well with just some of the tones of the wood. So it's not all one or two colours. So I'm just going to pop a few of these through, especially here, and curved lines in there. The base. Kind of the taupey colour in here. And this is all we're doing. So I'm just kind of making these really interesting, just kind of marks, just wiggling it. So we're trying to recreate, aren't we, the shapes and everything. What we've got. And that's where I would just put minimal marks on. Yeah, you'll start to see as well all the little areas that you might want to, darken off that you've not got the first time. That's okay. Just keep doing that. I may even make some of these even darker with a going with a bit of a black one actually, just to overlay just a small amount. But what we're after is lots of texture on here. Same with the lovely nest as well. Amazing once you start getting into it, isn't it? And this is where, you know, if your hand's moving around a little bit, just let it go into its natural kind of creative movement, as it were. I'm going to go in with these light patches before I actually go in with some really dark ones. In this side, so I'm going to go even lighter now. This is the bit, isn't it? It's almost it's almost a silver birch box, isn't it? Bird box, this one. Because of those lines coming back to side, back to, you know, back to front. So going over it, if you're going over any dark areas, it's a very light touch. And putting plenty of pressure on as well. So I've gone over that and I've brought a little bit of that dark colour into there, so got to be really careful. But yeah, we're still building this up. I'll pop a little bit of a couple of these marks going across to suggest that silver birch kind of a feel. And we're just setting the scene, really. You know, it's nice to recreate texture and have a go and just see, you know, explore all these different ways of making marks. Real highlights in there, quite brilliant. And then I'm just going to go in and make some of these areas around, you know, where we're looking, where you suddenly think, oh, actually, that's a lot darker in there, just to kind of give it some extra, just a bit of extra depth. And that's what we do. We just kind of just checking the balance of it. And again, under the ledge, some of those areas there. And again, sometimes this is to do with like how much texture you do or you don't want, because not everybody does want a lot of dark on there. So it's one of those things. I'm tapping it in very gently to work out, do I actually want that really dark area in or don't I? So you don't have to have that in either. You think, oh, it's too much of a strong contrast, then by all means, don't do that. Just keep it a bit lighter for yourself. It's all to work out what do we like, what don't we like. I pop some around this side because it looks a little bit like it's not there. Top on, so we can actually tell that we've got a bird box here and not not just lots of texture. But I mean, yeah, you can even go in then, can't you, over the top and get your highlights in as well. Is there any bits that you haven't highlighted that really kind of are flecky and stand out? That's the other thing to do, is to, when you've balanced out all your darks, make sure you've balanced your light ones out and got those in, because that just picks up some of the other textures that you might not have got there. All we can do, we just build up a picture, and also it's building up our understanding of what our style might be like if we're doing these. Okay. Yeah, so again, we're looking at what colours we might put on here, where we're getting a bit of a highlight on the top of the wood. Same with the twigs, where you've got those real bright bits, pop those in. A little tap. We're just putting more pressure on this over the top of the dark colours, that's all we're doing. So we're representing what we can see. Our artist's impression of all these textures to capture the moment of this lovely time in the garden, nesting time in the spring nesting in the garden, which is what we're wanting, isn't it? That's what it's all about. All these little things come together as long as we've got, our, we're capturing it in our own way. That's really, really good. So yeah, so it's just adding more on there. If you're finding you're working over a dark darker pastels with a light one, you can just give them a little wipe off. They're getting a little bit covered in, in the dark one. That'll be fine. Just put a bit under here. An edge under there as well. And there we go. So there you can just have a little look back and think, is there anything I want to add, take away? The only thing I do is just move this one just slightly. Just ever so slightly. So yeah, so it's a gorgeous time, isn't it? Really lovely time. Hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll make that my final pause now. But yeah, take a good step back from your work as well, because it's quite, when things are heavily textured, it can be quite, we need to have a little bit of distance from it, really. So I hope you've really enjoyed that one, and I shall make that my final pause, and I hope it's all going really well there.